training. I'm really glad to see you all here. We also have over 30 folks online at the webinar joining us. So I'll just say up front before I forget, if you have questions throughout, you should raise your hand and ask questions throughout. Wait till a mic comes to you so the folks online can hear as well. So I'm Megan O'Mara. I'm the Director of Safety Net here at United Way. And we just want to walk you through the plan for annual reports this year. I'll talk a little bit about why annual reports, why they're so important. My colleague will talk a little bit about guidelines. We'll do a sort of a tech portion so everyone sort of understands where the reports are located, how you access them. We'll take some time for questions, and it will be short and sweet. You'll be out of here before you know it. So to begin, why annual reports? So, you know, for those of you who've been a grantee for a number of years, you are probably used to doing these reports. You can probably do them in your sleep. I do just want to highlight what the reports sort of mean to us. I know that you all have numerous times throughout the year where you may have contact with your program manager. They come out for a site visit. You see them out in the community. But this is really our one chance to capture what you have sort of seen as the on-the-ground provider, the expert over the year. And so, you know, what has been really successful in your program, what have been challenges. We do love to hear challenges because we can then start to see some trends, and that does help influence our priorities around funding and adjustments we can make to be better grant makers. What's working, what's not working, all those sort of things are really important for us to understand as we look at trends in the field and as we learn more from you to, again, as I said, help us become better grant makers and funders. The second piece is, you know, we want to sort of tell your story to the community, and so the more we know about the work that's happening, and whether it's a success story or you talking about a specific kind of challenge you overcame or whatever it is, the more we can talk to our donors, the more we can talk about this work at tables that we're at throughout the community and raise up the good work that you're doing. And then finally, there is an accountability piece here, obviously. We're accountable to our donors and to the community for the money we grant out, and this is sort of one mechanism that sort of satisfies that accountability and makes sure that, you know, we're all on the same page with what's happening at the program. So moving on to the timeline. So on the 15th, which would have been, I think, Tuesday, the annual report became available online, and you should all have received an email alerting you that that was happening. We have our training. We had one yesterday. We have this one right now. And then you have until April 1st, 4 o'clock, to submit those reports. And my colleague Sam will talk a little bit about some tips and starting early and that sort of thing. After you guys submit, staff here take most of April to review those reports. You know, there's some back and forth, certainly, if there's questions. If there are questions, you'll have the chance to make revisions, things like that, so it's not like you push send and you can never change anything again. That'll be a conversation, certainly, with the program manager, and then we plan to sort of finalize everything in May. So that's the timeline we're looking at. And then we do have some new staff here at United Way, so I just want to make sure you haven't met folks yet that you have a chance to today. So I'll just run around the room. We have Camille Cyprian. Camille, you want to raise your hand? Covering our health work. Allie Larson, managing our independence work. Sam Blackwell. He's going to talk next, so you'll meet Sam. And then Rachel Speck, managing our jobs and training. And again, I'm Megan O'Mara, and I'm fairly new, so I may not have met many of you. I will be your point person for hunger as well as domestic violence. We're in some staff transition, so for now, for annual reports, my contact info is up there if you're a hunger or a domestic violence grantee. Oh, and then of course, Sarah Friedman, I want to introduce you. She's our operations manager, and for anything that's not program related, she's the one to call. And then we have, of course, IT help here, and that's the quickest way if you're having trouble logging in or anything like that to get help. All right. And then the last thing I'll say, just so you're really clear, the annual report is due April 1st. The other thing due April 1st is your 2016 board roster. You probably, most of you are used to sort of submitting that, but that goes to the grantees email listed right here. And that's all. That's all we need from you on April 1st. Looking forward a little bit to the annual financial compliance, which is separate from these annual reports. This little table here will help you figure out for your organization when your financial compliance is due. Here's the list here of what we ask for, and then based on your fiscal year end, you should be able to figure out when that piece is due. So, you know, let your finance folks know or make note of that. The next org financial submissions are in late July, and then another batch in early 2017. And that's all in your PowerPoint. Okay, so any questions on some of the basics? Great. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over here to Sam Blackwell, covering our housing work. He's going to talk a little bit about tips and guidelines.
Great. Can everyone hear me? Great. So I'm going to take you through some tips and guidelines to completing a quality report. Most of you have done this before, which is great. But I'm just going to cover some things that might be new to you. So the demographic outcome and budget data is going to be really similar to what you've seen in years past. A couple notes on that is that you may see some shifts in the demographic data, particularly in the age brackets. And we're doing that because we want to align more closely with what the U.S. Census asks, so that we can make some meaningful comparisons there. You're also going to see some optional demographic data. United Way is interested in sort of looking into some of that disaggregated data, and this is an attempt by us to sort of pull those numbers out and see how we can use them in a meaningful way, and whether or not we can store them in a good way too. I just want to stress about those optional demographics is that they are totally optional. So you won't be rewarded or penalized. Include them, or if you don't. And we don't expect anyone to be collecting them, but if you have them, we're interested in seeing them if you want to share them with us. Additionally, you'll also see some new narrative questions, which we're going to go over. I just want to stress right now that these are only for the safety net grantees. So if you are part of the jobs and training portfolio, you can just ignore the next 5 minutes or so of the presentation. So these new narrative questions are really about the grant term as a whole. We're interested in what you've learned, sort of what you were able to do with this grant, and some other things about the whole grant term. So I'm just going to go through them and give you an example of what we're looking for and go into a little bit more depth. So the first one is, as you reflect on the 3+ years of this grant cycle, what are you most proud of with regard to your program's work with the population served? So this is the point where you can tell your story and tell the story of your success. So we just want to know what things you're most proud of in the grant year. So, or sorry, in the whole grant term. So an example could be that 90% of the families that you worked with achieved stable housing after 12 months, or you've served 10,000 kids in the Twin Cities over the past 3 years, or you implemented trauma-informed care and therefore are better equipped to work with people who are facing trauma. Anything that you're really proud of and that you want to tell us is great. We just want to hear your successes and hear those good stories. The second question is, describe how United Way has supported your program. What did the grant allow you to do during the grant term of 3+ years that you would not have been able to do? And so this is, what did you use the United Way funds to do to achieve your program's outcomes? And this can be something from something very exciting. You know, we were able to scale our program to different locations, or it can be something that isn't that exciting but is so important, like or we were able to do some of the administrative work that other grants won't pay for. We just really want to know what United Way's value was in this grant term and how you use the money to forward your mission. And then the third question is, what were your most salient insights and reflections your organization had about the program during the grant period? Examples could include learnings about the population served, the issue your program is addressing, your service model, and how did the program change as a result of what you learned. So this is where we're looking for those key aha moments that might have happened during your grant term, those moments where you suddenly realized that something needed to shift or change, or that you learned something very important. And we just want to use these ideas to, we want to know what changes were made so that we can better support our grantees and the broader community, and take some of what you've learned and share it externally and throughout the sector. Great, so I am now going to walk through an example of an application, and you're going to have to bear with me because I did not sign into the grants portal before coming down here, which I should have had done. So this is what it's going to look like for you when you sign in, which is great. Awesome. So Tom's video in the future is going to walk you through this, but this is what the sign-in is going to look like. So you'll enter your username and password. Hopefully it will go faster for you. Great. So this will be what your agency dashboard will look like. If you scroll down to the reporting subsites, that's where you'll see the different reports for your different grants. So I'm going to pull up the Supportive Housing for Youth page to dive into that. And then when you want a new report, you're going to click on this big thing that says Start a New Report. You won't actually go into the 2015 annual section. You'll just click on the big link to start a new report. So to begin, you're going to want to put a name for your report in here. We're hoping that you'll do your agency name and your program name. It'll be a replica of this drop-down box, but it helps us in our system if your agency name and your program name are in there so that we can search for it more easily. And then you're going to want to select your program and your organization from this drop-down menu. As you scroll down, you'll see that there's a program contact space. So this is the person that we should call if we have any questions, what's in the report, or if we need to verify anything. The next part is the narrative question about your funded program. So this is just a one-paragraph description of who you are, who you serve, what you do, and sort of what you want to see happen. Think of it as an elevator speech or a pitch. And then there's a question that's similar to one of the questions we asked about the grant term, but this is just about this previous grant year. And so this is an opportunity for you to give us context about the grant year as a whole that you think might be important in terms of what your outcomes were, what your budget looks like. So this could include things like we received an extra grant, or one of our service delivery locations had to shut down, and that's why we are seeing fewer people. Or it could be something like a key staff change. Somebody who was important to the program stepped down and you're looking for a replacement. Anything that you think would be important for us to know in terms of context while we're reading through the numbers of your report. Scroll down, you'll also see the program-specific indicators here, and these should match what you have in your application and what you did last year. If they're not, please let us know so that we can figure out what's going on there. But you'll see that next to each one, you'll have an opportunity to put a number in, and then you'll also have a text box underneath each one of them where you can explain any sort of variation between what you expected to see and what actually happened. So be either good or bad. So if you got your recruitment was much more than you anticipated and you were able to serve more people, feel free to put that in. Or if you lost a grant and you had to let someone go and therefore you weren't able to serve as many people, please put that in there. It's hard for us to get a good feel of what's going on with you guys through just your numbers. So this is your opportunity to give us context and let us know what's happening. So if you scroll down there, then you're going to come to the narrative information. And so the first question is just about tell us a story. United Way uses these stories to help amplify the work that you guys are doing to our broad base of stakeholders. So the stories that are really compelling to donors and to people who are making policy decisions tend to be stories that are specifically about an individual. We also like to hear stories about how the individual changed or achieved stability, and specifically how your program helped them reach that point too. So it should be tied to your program outcomes as well. One thing is that we also please ask you to change the name of any of your participants. We'll probably change the name too, but we just want to make sure that we're not identifying anyone who doesn't want to be identified in the stories. So then, as you scroll down, you'll see the 3 additional narrative questions that we talked about. And then we're going to get down to the organizational budget information. First thing is that there is a button here that will take you to a guide that will help you sort of outline the things that I'm going to talk about here if you forget. So I encourage you to click on that button if you have a question, see if the answer's in there, and if not, feel free to reach out to your program manager about it. So a couple things about the program budget. First is that this first line is for your specific grant. So if you're receiving $75,000 a year from us, we wanted to see $75,000 a year there. And if you do receive donor designations, please put them in the individual and charitable contributions line. Those are technically individual contributions that are moved through United Way, so we want to make sure that we're only looking at the actual grants amount in our United Way section. Additionally, if you have a type of income that you can't find a place for in this budget, please feel free to use the other line here. But if you do so, please just put in a short description in the text box next to it, so that we have an idea of what it is and where that money is coming from. So then you'll also see expenses, which I think are pretty easy to understand. But then there's also a text box here at the end of the budget where you can explain anything that you think is important for us to know in the context of your budget. It could be that you maybe purchase new materials and that's why your expenses are more than your revenue. Or you might have grants that haven't paid out yet, but that you're expecting in the future, and that's why you'll see a deficit. Any sort of thing that you think is important for us to see as we read through your budget. You'll then see the program demographic data. And so for the first section, when it comes to gender, age, race, and location, we're looking for unduplicated counts of individuals served. So you'll just fill all of those out. And then a couple other things is that there are going to be unknown categories in each of these different sections. We'd like you to keep the unknown categories as close to 0 as possible. We understand that there's certain circumstances where having this identifying information isn't going to be feasible, but it really helps us in sort of understanding our own impact if we have all of the data about the people that you're serving. All right, so then we'll get down to the income levels, and I just want to point out that when it comes to income levels, we're looking for households as opposed to individuals here. So you'll put the total number of households here, and then we do ask you to break it up by levels of poverty. So anyone that's below 100% of federal poverty guidelines would go in here, between 100 and 200 would be in here, and above 200 would be in here. We do have the poverty guidelines now on our website, so if you don't know those, you can pull those up and look at that. Additionally, if any of you are working only with students in schools and the only data you have is on free and reduced lunch, We will take that as a proxy. So if it is free lunch, it would be at 100% or low, and if it's reduced lunch, it would be between 100 and 200%. All right, and then lastly, we'll get into these optional demographics that I talked about before, and these will again be individual demographics and not household. So feel free to plug those numbers in. Again, just want to stress that these are optional and they are not required. So if you have the data, please share it with us if you want. Otherwise, you're good to go. And then if you have any information about the demographic information, you can put that in here. Also, if you have anecdotal evidence of the clients that you're serving, feel free to put that number in here. For example, I know that there are a lot of homeless organizations that are serving youth who are LGBT, but they don't ask explicitly in the intake form for that information, but you have a good idea of who is and who isn't. Feel free to put that number in here and just make a note at the bottom that says, you know, this information is anecdotal, it's not concrete, but we have a good idea of who we're serving. And then lastly, you'll see the service delivery locations. You can put the different names and locations of all the places that you're providing services in here. And you can add others by just clicking add another address. I know that some of you might have 15 or more of these service delivery locations. We want to save you some time, so just reach out to your program manager about that, and we'll figure out a way to best get that information into the system without you having to enter 20 different addresses. Yes, do you have a question?
Hold on just a second.
Thank you. My question is with the locations, since we're doing an annual report, some locations may change or close and new ones may open. Do you want us to just list our current locations or all through the year that we're reporting on?
The locations for the whole year that you're reporting on.
So both ones that may be current or ones that have also maybe changed shape or form. Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
We have also a question from the webinar.
This is a question I ask every year because I forget the answer. When you're talking about 2015 actuals in the budget, are we allowed to use the most recently completed fiscal year of the agency, or does it have to be the calendar year 2015?
You can use the fiscal year budget that you most recently completed. Great. Any other questions about that? Oh,
we do have one online question,
Sure.
and that is, in the demographics section, do we include the number of Latino and Hispanic participants in the race and the ethnicity section?
Yes. If you have the breakdown by race and ethnicity, yes.
Great. Any other questions? All right. Let's start this again, and then just a couple more tips for filling this out. Aim for accuracy and quality. We just want to make sure that we save ourselves some time by not having to do the back and forth after the report is submitted. So if you can just check your work, that would be really helpful for us. In addition, in the narrative questions, please focus on what you think is important. We don't need you to answer these questions as you think we want you to answer them. We're actually really just interested in learning about your programs and learning about what you're seeing in the field and with the communities that you're working with. So. Additionally, start the report as soon as possible. We do have some technical difficulties with our reporting tool, so starting as soon as possible means that you guys can get into the system and see if there are any glitches well ahead of time, so that we don't have to be in the 11th hour sort of panicking about getting the information in, as well as any technical issues that might come up. And then if you have any questions or concerns, or you don't understand what you're supposed to be reporting, please call your United Way manager. We're happy to talk, and we are going to be on call basically for the next month and a half to be here to answer any questions that you guys have, so that everyone feels good about the report that they're submitting by April 1st. So next up, sorry, are there any other questions? Great. So next up, we're actually going to watch a video made by our tech wizard, Tom Lands, who's going to walk you through the actual technical aspect of signing into the report and completing it. For people on the webinar, you are not going to be able to hear the audio for this. So feel free to sign off now if you would like. After this, we're just going to have some time for people to talk with their program managers. Thank you for joining in, and I will say that the video is actually posted on the website now, so you can watch the video if you have any questions about how to get into the system.
This video is going to run through the basics of completing an annual report through Greater Twin Cities United Way's grant management system, the LINK. Just a high overview here of the steps that we're going to go through. First, create your report team who are going to be working on your annual report. Make sure everyone has a login for the system itself. Log in then. First, begin a report one time, complete your information, and then once at the end, you'll submit the completed report. When you're preparing to log in, first make sure you have a supported browser. We recommend using Internet Explorer as the best option. Firefox also works quite well. Google Chrome and Safari should work, including Safari on your iPad, although there's quirks to those systems, and you may see some things that work better in Internet Explorer than Chrome or Safari. Before you begin your report, make sure everyone on your team is going to be working on their report has their own login to access the link. If you already have a username and password, you're registered. There is an option to reset that password if you forgot it, right on the login page. Otherwise, if you need a new password, there's a link here to visit our website under the For Nonprofit section, Funding Annual Reporting, where you can request a new access to the site. You can also access the same request form under the current funding opportunities page. You're looking for an orange link that says request a new user account. And when you click through there, the form that will come up will look like this. Make sure you provide your organization name so that we know what organization and applications and reports to tie this to. Otherwise, complete the form, click submit, and just note that, especially during busier times of the year, it can take us as much as a couple of days to complete these requests. So don't leave requesting your account for the system to the very last day. Once your account request has been filled, you'll receive an email back from us like this. Should have a link to the grant site here. Your username will be your email address, and it will have an initial password that you can then change once you log into the system. Once you have your username and password, you can access your RFP subsite just via the link main page, grantproposal.unitedwaytwincities.org. Enter your email address as your username and that password that you received on the login page. When you visit the link main page, it will first ask you for us to log in. Again, I plugged in my username, my password. If you've forgotten that password, here's a link to reset automatically the username or password associated with your account. Once I've entered those, go ahead and log in. And then once I've logged in, here I am on the main page. For annual reports, what you're looking for, if you scroll down here a bit, is the reporting subsites list. This should list any RFPs the organization has a report due in through any of those. And this will take you to the main page for that RFP where you'll find any past reports that you completed, information here on the grant itself, contacts for that grant as well. If you are the first person from your organization, you should see a blank 2015 annual report library here. In this case, I have a previous test one that I'm going to disregard. But if you're beginning a new report, one time, click Start a New Report, and that will bring up the report template. Once you've brought up the report template, the first two things I recommend doing. First, you need to complete the first two boxes. You need to provide a name for your report, which we recommend as being the format of agency name and program name. And then you need to select the organization for your grant. And then you need to select your organization from the list below. Choose the first one here just for the sake of After you've completed those first two boxes, I recommend you save, just to make sure that everything with your account is set up correctly and you don't run into any trouble with saving the report itself. If you receive the message here that says your report has been saved, things are captured successfully, return to the report, and you can continue to fill out information below. Just a quick run through, there's some general information on your organization programs here up above. Each RFP is going to have a section of program-specific indicators, a number of narrative questions on the grant. There's a budget and demographic sections here, and I will point out there's a click-through little guide here on completing those sections. We've highlighted some areas where we point out some suggestions for organizations to make sure that you get the correct information filled out in those fields that we're looking for. And then on this guide, there are a number of return to report links here that will jump you back to the report itself. After the budget information, you have a section of program demographic data. Again, the guide runs through some guidelines on completing this section. There's a new optional demographic section at the bottom of the demographic section. If you have this information, it's helpful for Greater Twin Cities United Way, but again, it is optional. And then lastly, service delivery locations. Provide the name and address information for each of your service delivery locations. To add additional spaces for more locations, click the add another address link here below, and we can continue to add additional addresses as necessary. If you're an organization that has 20 or 30 locations, feel free to reach out to your program manager and we can discuss other ways that we can get that information done. As you move through completing your report, make sure to save periodically. This is an online system and web connections go down. We wouldn't want you to lose work due to losing your web connection or your application system expiring or anything like that. So definitely make sure you save periodically. When all the work on your report is completed and you've done all your internal checks, everyone has made their contributions and you don't need to make any further edits to it, hit the submit button once to finalize your report and get everything locked in. You'll be taken back to the main page of the RFP, and under the annual reporting library, you should see that annual report you just submitted with an application status of submitted. So you know that everything is in, locked up, and finalized. Once you've submitted, you will no longer be able to make any changes. So again, make sure that all of your final changes are done. Then just a few tips on completing your annual report. Again, as I mentioned, save as you go along. Some users choose to draft their answers in Microsoft Word or another word processing system and then copy and paste into the system. You can definitely do that. Just understand that a lot of the formatting that you may do in Word, bullet points, bold, underline, things like that won't come through. We generally recommend users use the scroll bars on the right-hand side of the page to navigate through applications and reports, as there may be drop-down questions, and if you use the arrow keys to navigate through, you can change your responses to those. Also, you can have multiple staff at your organization working on your report, but know that if you have multiple staff people working at the same time, there is a bit of a danger of overwriting each other's work. I'll run through the details on that in just a second here, but for that reason, we recommend only having one person working in the report at a time, and to help make that possible, as you're saving your work, if you're not actively working in your report, we recommend that you close the report down. So just detail here how two people could potentially overwrite and lose work while working on a report. Just a little timeline here. In this example, Susan opens a new document and makes a save with the name and organization name chosen at 8:07. She continues to work for another 14 minutes. If during that time Carl comes in to begin working on another section of the report, he opens it 7 minutes later, he's going to be opening the first save version, which will have just those first two fields completed. He continues to do a bunch of work for another 25 minutes. Susan saves her changes. Let's say she completes the narrative questions at 8:24. Carl continues to do work on the budget demographics section, saves his work at 8:38. The original version that Carl opened up wouldn't have any of Susan's narrative answers in there. So when he saves, all that's going to be saved is the changes that Carl made. So any narrative work that Susan had done, saved here at 8:24, would be overwritten by Carl's saved version at 8:38. So this case, it would have worked better if Susan and Carl had coordinated their work. Susan did her work, saved, then Carl came in and began to do his work in the budget demographics section. Just a reminder that once all your fields are completed and you've done your internal reviews, make sure your executive director approves your report. Hit the submit one time, then on the RFP main page, you should see that in submission steps. Some resources then, we can have a link here for online reporting instructions. This PowerPoint will be out there, including and also on each RFP. Also, if you run into questions as you're completing your report, please don't hesitate to contact our help desk at support@gtcuw.org or by phone 612-340-7534. We're happy to walk through any questions or concerns with you as you go through completing your annual reports.
All right, what a movie, right? So I just want to wrap it up. Any questions after the tech piece or on anything that we've covered so far? No? Great. So we'll all be here after if you want to come say hi, or if you're too embarrassed to ask your annual report question in the group, whatever it is. We'll hang out for a while and we can chat. The last two things I just want to make a quick plug for the upcoming Night to Unite United Way event, which celebrates our community partners, both our nonprofit agencies as well as many of our corporate partners. It is April 14th, right, Sarah? Executive directors should be getting invitations next week. It's free. It's really fun. So if you and your staff want to join us, we would just love to have you all there. So more information should be coming to EDs, and obviously reach out if there's questions. And then the second thing, this will only apply to those of you who may have an education, to say the education grants are on a different reporting cycle, just so that's clear for everyone. There's been some questions. Their annual reports are happening in the summer, so if you do have an education grant at your organization, that's when you can expect training and reports to happen for education. But if that is it, I will say thank you so much for coming down or for joining us on the webinar, and have a great day. Bye.